Sharing with you in this video how to balance both masculine and feminine energy when creating your dreams and goals. And the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to actually do this is simply just to see a difference between the mind and the heart. I think that when we can see the difference between the two, what begins to happen is that we start to see the thing that bridges those two things in the first place, what makes them to be a thing in the first place at all. Ultimately speaking, I think that we can notice that at certain times in our life, we're going to have to be more logical. Other times in our life, maybe we're going to be quote unquote more emotional. Maybe sometimes in your life, you're going to be more masculine, and then other times in your life, you're going to be more feminine. But ultimately speaking though, I think that when we can come from a space of just being and notice how we're doing things and the place that we're coming from, naturally we will just know how to do these things in our life, when to be more logical, when to be more emotional. It just becomes simple. It becomes something that you don't even need to think about, because you know when to think, exactly how much to think, and then you just simply let it go and drop back into the present moment and just be. And ultimately, being, people believe that everything will fall apart if you do this. But ultimately speaking, your thinking becomes quite just a little bit more sharper, if that's, maybe not the right way to say it. But ultimately speaking though, what begins to happen though is that we actually start to truly care about how we're showing up in our life and what we're actually doing, and then that makes it easier to know how to do certain things moment to moment and how you have to be moment to moment. So then again, when I say see the difference between the mind and the heart, I want to make abundantly clear before I move on to the next point, is that all that's really about is having you notice and see again the formless essence prior to the mind and the heart at all. Whether you want to call it source, whether you want to call it consciousness, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it the universe, whether you want to call it whatever you really want to call it. The second thing that I want to share with you in this video is another thing that you can ultimately call it is divine intelligence. So what we're pointing to here is you being able to trust in that inner intelligence that is within you at all times. When you can learn to trust that inner intelligence that is within you at all times, that just sort of knows what to do without even thinking about it at all, that's your wisdom. That's your wisdom speaking through you in your actions. You don't always have to think about this. Remember, you actually learn through action. That's what I think people forget, is that a lot of learning happens not through theory. Theory is a good part of life. It's good to learn, it's good to take courses, it's good to read books, it's good to have a mentor, it's good to get information from the outside world. But ultimately speaking though, in action, if those things are a part of action, then those things are a part of action. But the energy of action and the energy of actually feeling an emotion at all is to be in motion. And when you're in motion, that means that you're trusting your divine intelligence. And again, you just sort of know what to do. It's not something that you need to necessarily force or overthink or think that maybe you're doing the wrong thing. It's like you just know moment to moment whether you're doing the right thing or not. You stop necessarily even overthinking at all. You stop overstressing, because you know that when you're overstressing, really what you're doing is that there's some part of you that is not actually trusting in your divine intelligence and who you truly are. I think that ultimately speaking, the thing that the ego wants to do when I say this is it wants to say, well, what about that 10% of suffering in my life that's not in my control? Well, then I would say, well, remember that it's just 10% in the first place. It's just 10%, Remember that I do believe 90% of suffering comes from the mind and the resistance that we put on the present moment. Oftentimes it's not about even what is happening or the situation at hand at all. A large majority of the pain comes from you, from your own mind, your own stories, your own filters upon the present moment. What we need to begin to do is start to be aware of those, not to fight them, but just to simply be aware of them. And I found that to be incredibly powerful in my personal experience. And so the final thing that I want to share with you in this video is to understand that it's really powerful to notice as well that everything in life is giving and receiving. Every single moment. I want you to notice how every single moment is an energy exchange. It's not something for you to necessarily believe as a nice concept. It's better if you actually see it and see the fact that every single moment, when you're giving a part of your energy to the moment that you're in, you're also taking something. Whether you're actually being with another person or another being in this present moment in time or not, what's happening is that everything is a give and take. When you connect with a person, that's a give and take. When you're being by yourself, that's a give and take. Everything is a give and take. Like you're always sort of in exchange with your entire environment. You're not disconnected from your environment. You are one with your environment. So that awareness, I believe, will naturally, again, make you do whatever it is you need to do. Ultimately speaking, every single person knows exactly whatever it is that they need to do to get to where it is that they want to go. Nobody just wants to admit it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to, maybe create a chaotic story or a drama around why they can't do it. And I understand that life happens, but ultimately speaking, it's like, I'm not talking about the extreme negativity, the extreme negative situations. I'm talking about like the average person. The average person here, right, is not going to be faced with so many blockages on the outside world that they can't create what they want. Oftentimes most of it is internal. So what we need to begin to do is remove all of that conditioning and begin to give ourselves permission to just simply take action when we know we have to take action, and then be more logical. Not that action can include feeling emotional as well, but again, all of these sort of terms and going into that sort of route of conversation and dissecting what means what and the meanings about this and then the meanings about that, ultimately speaking, it's like all of that is disconnecting us from basic common sense, basic trust in who you really are. That's just a basic thing that we should all start to trust in a little bit more, start to be more conscious of, and understand that when you can see again that life is just a give and take, you will know once again how to be more masculine in your life when you need to act more logical, when you need to just think a little bit more. And you're also going to know at other times in your life as well when you just have to be a little bit more emotional and feel your emotions as well, or whatever masculine or feminine even means to you at all. Because I do believe that ultimately speaking, even though there's definitions of words, on dictionary, on Google, whatever the case might be, that whatever consensus, you want data that you want to use to agree upon what these words mean. At the end of the day, everyone's going to have a different perspective on what masculine means, what feminine means, what logical means, and what feminine means, and it's like emotional means, and all of these types of different words. But one thing that we have to come to is an agreement upon the fact that who you truly are prior to all of these things is what you want to depend on. That's the place that you want to let yourself know when you have to do what you have to do, how you have to do it, how much you have to do it for, exactly what you need to do, and the weight, and all of these things become very clear. The blockage to that oftentimes is just, again, too much attachment to the ego, disconnecting you from your source and your divine intelligence, where all of this becomes very apparently and easily clear to you as you start to trust in who you really are just a little bit more.